I'm a financial therapist. Give me 60 seconds and I'll teach you the truth about why you overspend. And be sure to stay till the end for a cheat sheet reminder that has the potential to help save you thousands next time you want to overspend. Overspending is rarely about being bad with money. There are some real psychological reasons behind it. Here's the first. It can be a way to regulate emotions when we're stressed. If we don't know how to self-regulate, impulse shopping helps make us feel good in the moment, regardless of the long-term negative effects. Number two, it can be a reaction to scarcity. Your brain says, buy now or you'll never have it. So we buy. But then later when we get the bill, we feel awful. The reframe, overspending is not about discipline. It's a signal to check in with your emotions and your old money stories. Get ready to screenshot something that you can tell yourself next time you want to impulse buy.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Profit Pulse, where we make money simple, smart, and stress-free. Today, we're diving deep into something we all deal with, why we overspend. Ever wonder why that quick Target trip turns into a full cart? Or why retail therapy feels so good in the moment, but stressful later? It's not just about money, it's about psychology. In this video, we'll uncover the emotional triggers and hidden habits that cause overspending, and how to take back control of your financial decisions with confidence. Let's get into it.
Why do we buy things we don't need? Cognitive dissonance part 2. So you tell yourself you need to save money, but then you drop $300 on clothes the next day. And now you feel guilty because your brain's beliefs and your actions are not aligning, which is cognitive dissonance. You justify it by saying it was on sale, I deserve a treat, I deserve this, da-da-da-da-da. And sure, it feels better short term. You get that little dopamine spike. You're like, oh my God, my new clothes. But then in the long run, you just feel guilt. The fix to this is asking yourself, am I buying this because I need it? Or am I trying to silence the discomfort? Every purchase gives your brain a dopamine hit, which is the same chemical as addiction. You're not actually just buying the product, you're buying that feeling. And then you know what people say all the time? At least I'm not addicted to drugs and I'm addicted to spending money instead. Look at you rationalizing now. It's working. And then some people shop for like social comparison and status. They think the more they have, the more valuable they are. And social media obviously does not help that. But deeply think about it. What are you trying to prove? Who are you trying to prove something to? Is it actually worth it? So to stop emotional spending, the first thing to do, again, is ask yourself, do I actually need this or am I trying to justify it? Number 2 is delaying the purchase. 24-hour rule. Wait 24 hours and if you still want it, you can reconsider. Because that dopamine rush is gone now, so then you won't be buying the feeling. You'll probably just be buying it because you want it. And number 3, replacing retail therapy with another form of emotional regulation. Replace this with a healthier dopamine hit, like going to the damn gym. No one wants to go to the gym these days. Literally get up and go. And then there's reframing your self-worth. Babes, you are not more valuable depending on how much more things you have and how much more cooler you look. If you don't have land or a mortgage, I don't know what you're trying to show off. No one cares. Literally start bullying yourself. I know people say don't hate on yourself, but no, maybe you should. I see bitches with Chanel purses, but they can't even afford to go out. It's like, what? I'm just saying, this one little habit and reframing your mindset can save you hundreds of dollars. So start looking inward.
If you feel like you impulsively spend money a lot and you struggle to rein in your spending, I want to give you a tip that as a spending coach completely changed my life. Hi, I'm Paige. I am a spending coach, which yes, is a thing. I teach women how to spend money intentionally versus spending it impulsively. With money, we're taught how to do all of these things. We're taught how to save and invest and pay off debt, but nobody actually teaches you how to spend money. It's the most important yet the most underrated skill when it comes to building wealth, because the truth is you can't do all of those other things. You can't save, invest, pay off debt if you spend everything you have. But I want to tell you about this concept that really changed the way that I think about spending money. It comes from this book, The Psychology of Money, and it has to do with the money that we spend to impress other people. We spend a lot of money in an attempt to impress other people, to manipulate the way that people view us and perceive us. And a lot of people do that through spending money outside of their means and spending money on things that really at the core of it, they don't really even truly want. Okay, so here it is. It says, when you see someone driving a nice car, you rarely think, wow, the guy driving that car is so cool. Instead, you think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. People tend to want wealth to signal to others that they should be liked and admired. But But in reality, those other people often bypass admiring you, not because they don't think wealth is admirable, but because they use your wealth as a benchmark for their own desire to be liked and admired. Okay, so basically what he's saying here is that no one is thinking about you. When you buy the fancy car, when you buy the designer handbag, you think that people are gonna see it and be like, oh my gosh, that girl's so cool, she's so pretty, I wanna be like her. But the reality is that no one is really actually thinking about you. They're thinking about the object and how they would look and be perceived by others if they had the object. You hear all the time that, like, don't worry what people are thinking about you because no one's thinking about you as much as you think that they are anyways. And it's true. It's even true here. So take this knowledge moving forward. If you're spending a lot of money in an attempt to impress people, to gain admiration and respect from people, you going out and living beyond your means and buying all these things actually doesn't have the intended effect that you think that it will, because no one's actually thinking about you. If you're needing help with your spending, make sure to follow me, because that is what I'm here for. I am here to teach you how to spend money intentionally versus impulsively.
The amount of money you're willing to spend on things is a direct reflection of your self-worth, whether you realize it or not. And I understand at face value that sounds like really shallow, but this clicked for me the other day when I was having a conversation with my mentor, and we were over at his house, and for context, he's like Miami final boss, has the penthouse at the highest floor, multi-millionaire, the whole thing. And we were just talking about fashion and clothes, and he was looking at my outfit, and he's like, dude, the shirt is fire, like those jeans are fire, and the shoes I was wearing are like some Oliver Cabels, and if you don't know what those are, they're kind of like a white sneaker, almost like Golden Gooses, but they're like the budget version. They're like still a few $100. But not as much as Golden Gooses. And I asked him, I was like, well, what do you think about the shoes? Like, since they're the budget version of the Golden Gooses, do you just think they're trash since, you know, they're not the nicest version? And he told me, he was like, well, me personally, I would never wear something that isn't the best version of that thing. And I was like, okay, I get it. And he's like, no, legitimately, like, why would I ever settle for something that's less than the best? And he was like, that is an identity shift that I have made, to where I only give myself the best. He has the best apartment in his entire building. He wears the best version of whatever clothes he has. And he said it wasn't always this way, but I shifted my identity to where this is the only thing that I accept. And it was pretty profound to think about that, because it is an identity shift. What you're willing to spend money on reflects the standard that you're holding yourself to. And you might be watching this like, oh, well, that's dumb. If I could get the same thing for less, or maybe I like the cheaper thing more. Yeah, totally valid, right? Like, don't spend money on stuff that you don't want or don't like. Maybe you like the Oliver Cabels more than the Golden Goose. You like the design. But where you can apply this, it's in the small things that you spend your money on every day. Like when you're broke and you go to Chipotle and you want to get the guacamole, but it costs $2 extra, and you're looking at it like, oh, you know, do I really need to spend the $2 extra today because you're penny pinching? What you're telling yourself is that $2 that you're spending on the guac, even though the guac would make you happier, even though it would make your meal better, it would taste better, you, instead of valuing your own personal happiness and that standard you have for yourself to make yourself feel as good as possible, you value that little $2 more. And this scales up to different levels, right? Depending on how much money you have, but it's a belief system where you're basically telling yourself, if you want to save this money in order to sacrifice these different things, you value your money over these things that in turn increase your self-worth. And the almost ironic part about this, when you stop living in that scarcity and start walking in abundance and spending the extra money, you're not worried about if it's going to come back or not. Your mind genuinely is operating at a higher level in confidence and abundance, knowing that whatever you do, that money is going to return because you're letting it free flow. It's really like the law of detachment, right? You know, the things you're chasing you almost never get, but once you stop caring about the money, it ends up coming into your life more. And also, like, what's the point of the money if you're not going to spend it?
Did you know that there was this psychological phenomenon called financial abstraction? And it literally explains why it's so much easier for us to spend all our money. Apparently, the more digital and electronic money becomes, the less real it seems. No longer using cash is having a psychological effect. Have you ever had the thought that nowadays it just seems like we're playing a life-size version of Monopoly? Have you ever felt like you were working to collect tokens, almost like your whole life is just a video game? It being harder to view money as real is due to financial abstraction. When we no longer view money as real, we spend it like we're in a game. Financial abstraction is a phenomenon that occurs when a currency becomes less concrete and physical and more abstract, shifting from using physical things like cash to using more abstract things like Apple Pay, debit cards, Cash App. This is doing a psychological number on us because we're not seeing our pile of money get smaller as we spend it anymore, which makes money seem less real and makes it much easier for us to spend.
It's time to talk about no longer spending money on nonsense that you don't need, that an influencer suggests you to go and buy like a bunch of skincare products or things that you literally do not need. And let's talk about how to get responsible. And first, that starts with loud budgeting. What the heck is loud budgeting? And I'm just going to explain to you what loud budgeting is to me. Loud budgeting is having confidence in telling people about your budget and telling people that you can't do things with them. Like if you get invited to certain things, you'd be like, hey, you know what? Like I'm being careful right now, but like, thank you. Like maybe in the future. And also like if you're going to a coffee shop, if you're normally that friend that pays for your friends because it's awkward when you get to the register and like you don't know what to do, literally just say like, hey, like let's do it separate today. Start getting comfortable with your budget boundaries and start having boundaries around the way you spend your money. Also, what loud budgeting is to me is confidently sharing with my friends ways to save money and ways to like get ahead, and like sharing financial books that I'm reading or tips that I've learned. Like money should not be something that's a shameful hidden conversation. You should be able to confidently talk about it with your friends and not feel so embarrassed. Like do not hide and be in shame. Like money is a real thing. It's a real struggle. It gets to the best of us. It's not fun when you can't pay your rent. It's not fun when you can't pay your bills. So like you don't have to go through that alone. Honestly, be able to have friends that you can talk to about that. And to do so means loud budgeting, openly talking about everything around money fears, money traumas, how to work through them. Like you got to be able to have a group of people to talk to them about. And if you don't, I would honestly start with finding different resources. On my last video, I suggested a couple books that are really great. And I also just learned a couple things because I'm a big person and a big advocate about reading, and you should study the things that you want. And if you want love, study love. You want money, study how to make money. If you want to be disciplined, study how to be disciplined. Like there are books about everything. I've also just learned about obviously that you can go to your library. That is something that's known. But I also learned if you already are paying for a Spotify premium account, I think it's like $10 a month, you also have really good books that are included on there that are free audiobooks, which is absolutely amazing. And Atomic Habits and Psychology of Money are actually on there, so that's really cool. If you already have that, it's a way to save money and not have to buy more books. You can go do that. And then also just asking your friends, honestly, like see if your friends or like people at your work, your coworkers have read those books before, and see if you can borrow them from them, because a lot of people have books and don't mind to share. So it's a really good way to like get information and learn and expand your mind and grow without having to spend money on it. So that's a couple things that you could try to get your hands on some really good books. But honestly, if you want to be more financially sound, you need to be more financially literate, which means you need to study and do your research. But a lot of times, just going and reading a book about finances and stocks and savings, that's miserable. That is literally miserable. I have ADHD. I literally struggle to do that. But I will say understanding the emotion of why you spend money is the most important thing. A lot of us are addicted to self-sabotage. A lot of us are addicted to the guilt and shame that we feel after we overspend or we buy stupid shit online. We get that buyer's remorse. We are addicted to that feeling and that guilt and shame. We've probably experienced a lot in our life, so we like fall back into it. So a lot of us are honestly overspending as a way to like externally validate ourselves, or we think it's going to fix the feelings that we're having in our mind. If we're spiraling, we'll go and buy something, and it's actually because you're usually addicted. You're usually addicted to that guilt and that shame that kicks in. But anyways, loud budgeting this year, it just means like being openly honest and confident and just shouting about the tips and things that you learn. Like let's all share this shit we figure it out. It's hard. Life is hard. Life is expensive. It is difficult to get out of bad positions. I can tell you that for myself. So if we can also all just share what we're doing, scream it from the freaking hilltops, let's do it. Let's get financially literate in 2024 and stop being like girls in our 20s or 30s who are fucking struggling. Like it's not fun. And we don't need to wait for a man to come along and who's wealthy to come and save us. We can create it for ourselves, but it starts with now. And I said it in my last video. You don't become a millionaire, you build a millionaire on the little habits that you have now while you have very little money. Whether you have $10 to your name or $1,000 to your name, whatever, you are building the habits of a millionaire now. And it's in all the little things that you make now. It's going to be how you spend money later. Because imagine, how could a bunch of money come into your life if you don't even know how to handle the little amount that you have? That's all I have to say. So yes, big believer in manifesting, but I'm also a big believer that you do not get what you deserve, you get what you prepare for. And you can prepare for things mentally, physically. There's a lot of ways you can prepare for the money to come into your life. So anyways, guys, have a good day.
If you can't stop spending money, give me 2 minutes of your scroll. I'm going to explain why. It boils down to the fact that you continue to give your stuff and your money a job that isn't really its job. See, when you buy something, you're not just buying a thing, a product. You're buying a future state of feeling. I need this new serum to make me feel confident. I need those injections to feel beautiful. I need all these clear bins to organize my stuff in to feel more in control. So the formula we're seeing here is I need blank in order to feel blank. And there are endless variations of this. But in every variation, you are abdicating responsibility to your money and to your stuff to do a job that really you should be doing because you are trying to use spending and stuff, something in your external environment, to fill an internal void. And the problem is it's never going to work. No amount of stuff is going to compensate for the fact that you just really don't like yourself that much. No amount of clear bins are going to compensate for the fact that you feel totally out of control in your own life. And no amount of beauty products are ever going to be able to solve for your inner self-hatred and self-loathing. And instead of coming to this realization that you're playing a game that can't be won, you just think it wasn't the right top. It's not this serum, it's got to be that serum. It just wasn't that planner, but this planner is going to be the one that changes my life. And so you just keep going out and buying more and more and more, trying to solve your internal problems with external solutions. Now, coming to this realization does not mean that you have to stop buying new things that you want, but it does mean that you can step into a place of power and start spending your money from a place of radical responsibility by recognizing that the worthiness, the sense of control, the confidence, the self-acceptance, fill in the blank, is your responsibility. It is an inside job. It's not the job of your money or your stuff to do that for you. Reclaiming this responsibility over your spending and your money is what day 4 of my 5-day workshop, Sloppy to Sophisticated Spending, is all about. So if you're sitting there thinking, Paige, sounds great, but like, how do I actually do this? That's exactly what we're going to be covering in the workshop. A link to join us in the workshop can be found in my bio. I'll see you there.
If you can't stop overspending, it's not a character flaw. It's a condition. And the good news is that it's treatable. Compulsive buying disorder affects millions of people. It often starts as a coping mechanism. Many people have a history of trauma, but it can then become a compulsion and create problems of its own. So if your spending is out of control, if it's hurting your relationships, if it's hurting your financial life, if it's racking up credit card debt for you, if it's causing you daily anxiety, it's time to get help. There are therapists out there who specialize in financial behavior. I've got a link to some resources in the description. There are support groups like Debtors Anonymous. There are online communities where people share inspiration and stories around their recovery journey. You're not alone. You're not broken. The fact that you're watching this video and you've got this far into the video means that you have the insight and courage you need to take action.
I love what you've done with the kitchen, and this marble table is gorgeous. You must be doing well. I'm actually in debt, but I can't stop overspending. It's my way of coping with scarcity trauma. If you survived having little in the past, why would you risk losing it now? My brain and body are used to living on the edge, so having resources is actually unfamiliar. How are you not anxious about your debt? I was born into debt, so I'll overspend to get back to my baseline that I'm accustomed to.
But I've never heard anybody emphasize the importance of spending money. You've written this book, The Art of Spending, so it begs the question, why would someone like you, who sells tens of millions of copies of their books when they write about something, and really, really cares about the art of writing, commit themselves to writing a book about the art of spending when you could have written anything that you wanted to and it would have been a success?
So I've written about money and finance and investing for 20 years, and almost never had I myself said, what is my spending philosophy? I can tell you how I invest. There is virtually no book out there written about spending money. So to look at the psychology of greed and envy and social aspiration and like climbing the social ladder, who you're trying to impress, whether those people are paying any attention to you. So much of spending is a psychological exercise. There's a great financial writer named Tiffany Alichet, and she grew up very, very poor, and now she's extremely successful. And she calls it post-traumatic broke syndrome. So even though she has a lot of money right now, I don't want to put words in her mouth. My understanding is like she's afraid to spend it because the feeling in her head is, I will never go back to that. It's not just, I want the nice car because nice cars are better. There's a social signaling. It's not just, I want to buy this car or this house or these clothes or these jewelry because it's nice. I'm trying to send a signal to others or to myself of what I've overcome. One of the ways I thought about this in my own life was if I was on a deserted island with maybe just me and my family, nobody could see how we were living. For me, and I think most people in that exercise, you immediately gravitate away from status and towards utility. And so once you start seeing the stark difference between utility and status, once you force yourself to see it, you're like, oh, it's everywhere.
Is something inherently wrong with status?
But I would say this, my own personal desire to show off materially happened when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I had nothing else to offer. Friends, family, spouses, whatever it would be. And now that I hope I hope to today, 20 years later, I have a little bit more to offer to my wife, to my friends, to my family, to employers and customers, whatnot. Then my desire for those things has gone down. There's a great Warren Buffett quote where he says, success in life is when the people who you want to love you do love you. And key to that is like, you have to ask the question, like, who do you want to love you? I respect them. And by and large, that is almost never true because no one's thinking about you as much as you are. And that was why I get back to the exercise. If nobody was watching, how would I live? The truth is because virtually nobody is watching, except the people who I really love and admire. And they're going to admire me for things that have nothing to do with the kind of car that I drive or the clothes that I wear. One of the things I write in the book is what's called the reverse obituary, which is it's a very good, helpful exercise to write down. It's kind of morbid, but what do you want your obituary to say? Kind of a weird thing, but for me, everyone's different. But for me, I would want it to say Morgan was a good father, a good husband, a good friend, helped his community, was a good worker. That's what I would want it to say. Never in a million years in that obituary would I want it to say what my income was, how big my house was, how many times I went on vacation, how many horsepower my car had. Money should be a tool that you use to become a better version of yourself, to become a happier, more content version of yourself. And so the idea that, to me, the best thing to spend money on is independence. And I view it as purchasing. And so to me, the biggest thing that I spend my money on, and this sounds weird, but is saving. And I view that as buying independence. And so when you view one of the cores of living a good life is independence, and any amount of saving money will buy you independence. I think that's a powerful observation for people. But for most people, like a good level of independence as a good goal is enough savings so that if you lost your job, if your car broke down, if you needed to replace the roof on your house, you would be able to do it without losing that much sleep. This is the most important part, is that all wealth, your feeling of wealth, is what you have minus what you want. And it's so easy to ignore the latter. Imagine yourself sitting in that house and saying, I don't want anything more than this. The feeling that we are aspiring to is just being content. And I have to remind myself because it's not intuitive. And I have dopamine that tells me you should want more, 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 more. So you never get over it. But I think once you've diagnosed the problem, it becomes easier at just like spotting that emotion and realizing that it's telling you a story that's probably not true. It's like, I always think about that humble bubble of like, the only thing that's going to make me happy exists underneath my roof. And I know that. If nobody could see anything that I was doing, how would I choose to live?
If saving feels impossible or you impulsively spend, do not beat yourself up about it. There is a psychological reason why we do that. It's called temporal discounting, and it's our brain's tendency to favor short-term rewards over future ones, especially if the future is unpredictable. So basically your brain sees the short-term win as more valuable because it's guaranteed, whereas long-term goals like saving accounts or investment accounts aren't guaranteed, so it can't make that emotional trade-off. This is all coming from the psychology of money, which basically says that our relationship with money is heavily based on the time we were born and what we lived through. Gen Z lived through the 2008 financial crisis, watched our parents lose jobs there, lived through COVID. And more recently, when we just started earning, weren't able to keep up with rising prices due to inflation. I had to run to my workout, so finishing my thoughts, but basically our generation lived through a lot of unpredictability, so we are more likely to impulsively spend. And I'm going to make another video about tips that I have for inconsistent earners on saving. I wanted to make this video first to kind of squash any guilt that anyone had about not having their finances together or feeling like they can't get a control on spending or saving, and just let you guys know that it's very normal, especially for our generation.
I don't think many people realize that overconsumption and overspending is really a spiritual problem and not a math problem. It's more about your values and less about the math of it, right? And I think when people think about like controlling their spending, they think about it in these very mathematical, objective terms, like make a budget, cut back. However, if overconsumption was actually a budgeting problem, those solutions would work for everybody, but they don't, or they might work for a little bit, but they don't work for that long. That's because the real issue is that not that you don't know how to budget, it's because you have a values misalignment. You are trying to fill a spiritual void with material objects. And so many people's spending is completely disconnected from their values. I always say that money is a tool to live the life you want to live. And I think so many people don't fully think through what life they want to live. And so therefore, they're just spending money. And they're often spending money to signal something to other people. Or they're doing it for external reasons. And they're not actually doing it for things that make sense or mean something to them. And when you do not have a clear internal compass of what actually matters to you, you will outsource that meeting to products, brands, other people's approval. And that's why it's called retail therapy. And it never actually works, right? It's just like a way of self-soothing. And like, I think we use spending as a way to deal with really uncomfortable emotions that we often have. It's like a very self-soothing mechanism. And that explains why it doesn't actually lead often to long-term happiness, because we get that little dopamine hit when we buy the thing. And then like 2 seconds later, we're like, okay, what's next? And a lot of our shopping also is buying an identity. It's buying how we want other people to perceive us. And companies know this. And that's why a lot of marketing is not like selling the product, it's selling that identity. It's selling something aspirational. Like if you just buy this thing, you're going to be this person. And a lot of people buy into that. And when you lack a strong internal sense of who you are and what you value, you will be very vulnerable to this type of messaging. And this is a spiritual crisis at the core of overconsumption. We live in a culture that has replaced meaning with buying things. We've replaced community with consumption. So much of our communities is based around brands and like the types of products we're buying. So when you feel empty or anxious or disconnected, your brain will reach for the solution that the culture has trained you, which is to just buy something. And the real work isn't just like creating a budget and cutting back on things, because a lot of times it's not sustainable for people. It's like going on a diet. It's instead asking yourself, what do I value? What do I care about? How do I want to live my life? Like, what am I actually trying to feel? What void am I trying to fill? And you can't budget your way out of like a spiritual crisis. If you don't know what you value, everything becomes a priority. And when everything's a priority, nothing is. And that's why it's really important to understand your values when you're thinking about overconsumption.
And that's the truth about why we overspend. It's not about lack of discipline. It's about understanding your emotions around money. Once you know your triggers, you can start spending with intention, not impulse. If this video gave you a few aha moments, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone working on their financial glow up. Don't forget to subscribe to Profit Pulse for more insights on money mindset, budgeting, and financial freedom. This is Profit Pulse. Stay smart, stay steady, stay profitable.